everybody. Welcome to Sick Girls Pod, and this is the show where we talk all things Sex in the City, and we are continuing on our look at the CARRIE Diaries this week, and we are talking about season 1, episodes 6 and 7. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Jax is here.
Rachel, these episodes were fun.
Yes, like finally we got a good batch. Like I feel like we've had always there's one bad episode in our reviews. So
yeah. These were really fun. They were also heartfelt.
Yeah.
Such good acting. Like this gets me so excited. It makes me really wish that even though Sex and the City is an incredible show and so iconic with wonderful acting, it makes me wish it had a little more heart. CARRIE Diaries does that really well.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely those things that we don't like with a lot of with the relationships, but as far as the family and the individual character journeys, I think they've been really solid.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, the first episode that we have is episode 6 called Endgame. And it's Carrie gets in over her head when she tries to cook Thanksgiving dinner for her family, her new boyfriend, and his father, and must enlist Mouse's help. Maggie is excited to have Thanksgiving with Walt's family. So overall, what did you think about this one?
I mean, I love a holiday episode in a TV show. They're always really fun. I thought this one was especially poignant because we got to see Carrie really wanting to live up to her mom's expectations. But something that they did in this that was just so beautiful was that we got to see real human vulnerable moments from a lot of the characters. Like Dorrit, it's like, oh, you were really close to your mom. Like Carrie's watching football with her dad while you were helping your mom. And we get to see Sebastian be alone and realize that a lot of his stuff might come from his unstable family life. And then we get antics in the kitchen with Mouse, and it's funny. So yeah, I thought this one, for me, this might be my favorite episode of the series so far. How did you like it?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I definitely love those holiday vibes. And it was a good episode even for Sebastian. It was a good episode for George. And you know, the next episode not as good for him, but but at least in this one.
I'm sorry, I have a fire in my belly about that one that we'll get to.
But yeah, with Dorrit and here's the thing about making Thanksgiving dinner. The thing about it that's hard is it's so many different things to coordinate all at the same time. Like none of the stuff is particularly difficult to make. They're all pretty simple. But it was kind of hard that she didn't have the recipes, and I felt kind of mad at Dorrit for smudging out her mom's recipes. Oh, that's something you can never get back. But that's the trick of taking on Thanksgiving. It's not necessarily that it's that hard to make. It's just coordinating it all together is hard.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that Dorrit did something that, as you said, ruined the recipes forever. I thought maybe hiding them would be something that would kind of be all right. Like, okay, she's just acting out, and then it's like, oh, I have them and whatever. I loved how Carrie, after everything goes awry, says, someday I'll use my stove or my oven for storage. And we know that she does. She grown up Carrie Bradshaw stores stuff in her oven, and it was just really cute to see. I like when they do the connections like that. I think you and I have talked about how we wish that they would actually have more of that.
Yeah, and at the beginning I was like, what? They can't make her be this great cook, you know. So that doesn't make sense with her at all. But then I realized that okay, she's not great.
You realize you're headed for an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah. And then when George is coming over, she hides everything in her room, all her Hello Kitty, which I feel like that's different than now. I feel like people now kind of are almost proud of their nerdy stuff. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's different when you're in high school, but I think that we kind of display these kinds of things now, whether it's superhero stuff or Hello Kitty or whatever it might be. She's got the photo of Sean Cassidy.
He's looking like a snack in that photo. A terrible photo of Sean Cassidy.
Yes. And we got Sebastian. He's supposedly going to be having Thanksgiving with his mom. And he says, Happy Turkey Day, Bradshaw. That was pretty good.
That was a good Sebastian.
Oh, yeah. Right.
He's been doing that Elvis voice since before he played Elvis. So
yeah. So we also have Maggie. She's keeps interacting with Simon. What do you think about this with Maggie and Simon?
So it's one of those things that it's just like, so the X factor for me, like it's, first of all, Maggie looks adorable in her little, I think they say she looks like Nancy Reagan, but she's all prim and proper and looking all adorable.
Yeah.
But I think that we know not only that he's an adult, but that he's a cop who works with her dad. Like it's just, it feels so wrong. Like
Yeah.
it's an actual literal legal crime and a moral failing as well on his part.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the fact that at least so far they haven't pushed that additional line where he hasn't like forced himself on her yet.
Right.
I have a feeling that might be coming with him. It seems like that's where this plot might be going. And but for now, at least he's not like a criminal. I get in that sense, he's not, for now, at least he's not like a terrible human.
Yeah.
But just kind of icky. Yeah, like you're saying.
Very icky.
And I feel like it's kind of weird too, because I think that he looks quite a bit like Walt. So I guess she has a type.
He does look like Walt. Very much so.
Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Mouse saves the day, brings over the cookbooks, and this is like a huge change that has happened since obviously it's 1984, because now you just go on YouTube, you just go on Google how to make a turkey or whatever.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
And now it's so much easier. We have such a wealth of knowledge just at our fingertips now. It's kind of amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, it really is incredible. And the things, I mean, you and I grew up at a time, and our generation is very special in that way, that we grew up as the internet we were coming up with the internet.
Yeah.
So we got to have a lot of experiences where we did have it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were younger and even Carrie's age, it's like we wouldn't just be able to Google for a recipe.
Yeah, it's true. And so Maggie is eating Thanksgiving at Walt's, and Walt's family wants him to go to Dartmouth, and he doesn't want to go there, but he doesn't have the guts to tell them. And they're like, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, I haven't even thought about that. She's like, I'm just a junior. I don't have to think about that yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know about you, but what was your college experience like? Did you think were you pretty set on where you wanted to go, or
I got this scholarship that was for students who were in particular regions of Pennsylvania that were like that from like poor counties in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And with that scholarship, we could go to a handful of schools, and my cousin had gone to Susquehanna, which is where I ended up going. So I was pretty much like, oh, I have money to go to this school. My cousin went there. That's sort of what my path was. Was your path pretty set?
Yeah, it was. I had always wanted to go to BYU my whole life, and I didn't think I was going to get in. I didn't have like the best ACT scores, and so that was what I was worried about. But I had to go, because my family had moved before my senior year of high school. I ended up going to community college that year, so that helped me a lot that I had all A's because I had no friends, nobody else, nothing else to do but school. And so that helped me a lot, I think, to be able to get in. But I was still really nervous because it's a hard school to get into. And I got the letter and I opened it by myself because I didn't think I would get in. And I just started screaming.
Do your whole family hear you?
Yeah. And I was so excited. I think that it never has such like high expectations actually been met. And if movies like Never Been Kissed, where people go back to high school, I would never want to do that. But if going back to college, those college years, yeah.
I like that, Rachel Wagner, the college years.
Yes.
Yeah,
That was such a good time in my life.
Question: if you are a devout Mormon and you really want to go to a school like a Mormon school, is it just BYU, or like what are the other ones that like would be?
Yeah, so there's a BYU Idaho, and then there's a BYU Hawaii. Okay. But it is hard to get into BYU Hawaii because they really try to take locals first, and then and have not just locals, but people from all over the South Pacific. Obviously that's the priority. But I do know some people who did get in and loved going there. I mean, I had never been to Hawaii at the time, or if I had, I probably would have wanted to go there. But I always wanted to go to BYU. I had been one of the only members of my faith in my high school. There were only, I think,
oh really? I didn't know that.
Because I was in Maryland and there was only 2 or 3 of us in my grade. And that had strength, and I had great friends that were very supportive of me. But I just really was ready to be in a community.
Yeah.
And to be supported. And so I loved college. I just really embraced every part of it. Like, I'm not that big of a sports person, but I got this, you got this sports pass, and it gave you a ticket to every football game, and you had a pass to get into basically anything else you wanted to go see. So my friends and I would just go to like random volleyball games, and just, I don't know, we did all the dances, it was just so much fun. My freshman year.
Sports. I didn't go to any games, and
well, and it wasn't about the sports, it was just about doing something with friends.
Yeah.
It was like something to do. And so, because I'm not really, aside from swimming, I'm not really much into sports, but just any activity we were in and we would do, and we had so much fun. So I definitely wasn't like Maggie, but I know a lot of people do struggle with what they want to do, where they want to go. And I also, my personality is just, I don't like being in a state of indecision. That is not me. And so these people that like go back and forth and change majors and everything, I was just like, that is not going to be me. And also the fact my brother, who was 2.5 years older than me, he had like gone to 4 or 5 different colleges. He kept changing. He actually never ended up graduating because he was so wishy-washy, and he had credits from so many different schools and everything. And that I was like, I'm going to do the exact opposite. And so I already had a year of credit going into it. And so I finished, even though I loved it, I finished in 3 years, my undergrad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I graduated in 2002. And it's, I mean, it's just wild to me that it's been over 20 years since
You could have just had a year to just hang out and take classes, but that costs money. So
yeah, but I ended up working for a year after that. And so I did kind of have, but I was still living in campus housing and things like that. So,
oh, that's nice.
Off campus housing, but I was still in that
fun.
environment for a whole year.
Yeah.
And then I went on my mission after that. And so I did kind of have a year of just like
fun.
Yeah.
I have to say, one of my favorite things, being in Salt Lake City Airport that I've been in, I've flown into Salt Lake City twice now. It's seeing people come back from their mission.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's the best.
I can't even think about it now or I'll start crying. I just would sit there all day.
Yeah, and it was even more when I went out. It was even more emotional because now they can call, they have cell phones.
I didn't know that. I didn't know
they can call family. When I was going, you only had 2 phone calls to family a year, on Mother's Day and on Christmas.
That's what I'm familiar with, because most of my friends that are Mormon are my age.
Yeah, everything was just letters. And so when you got home, yeah, it's an experience. It sure is. But anyway, I felt for Maggie. I think not everybody has everything all figured out, and that's okay too. And it's okay to kind of explore, take a gap year, whatever you need to do, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And even Walt, it's like, it feels like his path's all figured out to be a legacy at Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know if he knows he wants to go to Dartmouth. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because Maggie says nobody in my family has goals for me. Like, she's kind of envious of the fact that Walt's family even cares where he's going to go to school or do anything.
That's a hard thing for Maggie to sort of realize. And it's like not part of her family culture. And like, I'm a first generation college student, but my mom and my dad, since I was little, always like talked to me about going to college. So it was always something that I knew that they supported. But if I didn't have them saying that, it might not be something that I knew was even a possibility. Yeah.
Well, and I used to be the queen of college. Like, nobody loved college more than me. Like, those were such a happy time in my life. But now I feel like I would be somewhat hesitant to really push it on people. I don't think that it really helps you all that much as far as like getting a specific job. So if somebody is going to, I think it's great to go to college for liberal arts, at least if you want to learn how to write, learn how to read more effectively, learn how to speak better, all those things you can learn in college, working in a team, those kinds of intangible skills. I think it's great. But as far as like, I'm gonna go to college to get this specific job where I'm going to have this specific career, it's just not like that anymore. There's a few, like teaching, engineering, nursing. There's a few that bachelor's degree, you can have a specific job right after, but not that many.
No, you're totally right about that.
Yeah. So we also have George and Carrie basically making out in her bedroom, which I can't believe the dad would allow that. I think you'd at least have to have the door open.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because my high school boyfriend and we were not very physical with each other because we were more like buddies. Yeah. But our parents were both strict, but they kind of knew that we weren't really doing much. So they would let us have sleepovers all the time, but the door would be open. We'd just be like watching movies. And it was so funny because people were like, you guys are allowed to do that. And then they're like, oh yeah, you guys.
Yeah. I also don't think that Dort could get away with smoking pot as much as she does in the house. No way.
Well, it's also this thing of like, say even, you know, your parents were cool with pot, which I don't think he is. It just kind of like stinks. Like it makes it would be like, okay, well, like you're gonna notice it. Like
also, where is she getting this pot? Like she's what, 14, 15?
Yeah.
I mean, where's the 14-year-old girl in 1984 suburbs getting pot?
Yeah, like who's her dealer? What's happening here?
That I don't think that's happening. But all the shenanigans with cooking the dinner were funny. Like first it's too big, and I'm not sure how they they push it in. I guess they're able to get it in the oven because that was a small oven.
Oh gosh, it was so funny to just watch it all spiral out of control.
Yeah. What is your favorite Thanksgiving food?
Mashed potatoes, hands down.
Yeah.
How about you?
That's up there. Mashed potatoes and gravy.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's up there. I love cranberry sauce. One time my parents were gone, and so I was eating Thanksgiving at a friend's house, which was so nice of them. But I was like shocked that they didn't have cranberry sauce. I was like, oh.
Well, that was cute. Carrie asked that when she's talking to George when they're making out. She's like, she can't even think about kissing him because she's thinking about Thanksgiving. She said, do people really like cranberry sauce? We always have it at our Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just opening a can, so why not?
Yeah.
You know? But I like that tartness.
Yeah.
And cranberry sauce. And what's your favorite pie?
My grandma makes an amazing pumpkin pie that she actually makes with squash instead of pumpkin. So it's sweeter and it's so good. What about you?
My favorite, I think is probably, lemon meringue pie is kind of a tradition of mine for my birthday, to have lemon meringue pie on my birthday. I don't know why that started, but I like it really sour though, like really tart.
Really?
Yeah, I like the lemon strong. A lot of times when I've had them other places, my mom knows and likes to make it super, super strong. But a lot of times it tastes kind of, I don't know, bland to me at other places. But I like it with it. I like those tart flavors.
A little.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't see how this turkey would catch on fire like it did.
I don't either, but man, was it fun to watch.
That's funny.
It's like exploding.
Yeah. And what's interesting, so Dort tells Carrie that their mom hated doing all the work of Thanksgiving. And she says it felt weird for her to not be here. And for Carrie, she says, I felt weird to not try to do it. So she would do it. And I think that is true. I mean, I just think of my mom. So many of our family photos were taken on these like days where she was working so hard, you know, and so she looks so frazzled. I always feel so bad.
Yes.
You know, like those were the hardest days. The ones that were most fun for us were the hardest ones for her, and she didn't mind doing it. And it continues on. Even this last Thanksgiving, it was ridiculous because she had to make like 3 Thanksgivings because there was like the vegan food, because 2 of my siblings are vegan, and then she's gluten-free, so you had to have gluten-free stuff. And there were so many dishes on the table. It was absurd. I told her, I said, we should just go out to eat. Then people can have whatever they want.
Yeah.
And because and of course they were all horrified by the suggestion, but I think there's a case to be made for it, because everybody can just get what they want. And like, this food at Thanksgiving is not that complicated. Like, so like, I'm fine with turkey at Golden Corral or wherever, you know, someplace like that. It's turkey. Like, you can't really do it wrong. turkey, mashed potato, it's just stuff like that I don't know. I think, like I said, I think there's a case to be made.
And
If
no
I
mess with
ever
the
have a
dishes.
family, I think I might go to Golden Corral instead of
I love me some Golden Corral.
yeah. But anyway, so yeah, it is a lot of work. And I liked at the end her dad saying sometimes the things we love the most make us crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We,
It's that scene is really beautiful too in the beginning, where we see Carrie's mom from the back and she has curly blonde hair like her, and then we see a little Carrie. I was like, oh
yeah. And then we have Sebastian. He is alone for Thanksgiving, and his housekeeper offers for him to come with her to the house, and he's like, oh, don't worry about it. But he ends up at Carrie's house.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by W Rated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. Join me, Daisy,
and me, Claire, as we break down the IMDb Bottom 100, choosing a different film from the list every episode.
We take a deep dive into the plot, production, release, and reviews, usually with a special guest, to uncover if these films are truly as bad as everyone says they are.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, and anywhere else you find your podcasts.
And they have ambrosia and bean dip. That's what they end up eating.
happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't understand if the fuse had been if the fuse had gone out, like it's easy to just flip it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the electricity was out for so long, but nevertheless, they have ambrosia salad, which I do love ambrosia salad.
Yeah, and they all get to be together, and it's really sweet.
You know what I love? Another thing I love at Thanksgiving is because we don't eat a lot of Jell-O, and it's not like a regular item on our menu, but I do love the Jell-O salad with the pretzels crust, and then the Jell-O. Yeah, it's like cranberry Jell-O or red Jell-O, and then with cranberry sauce in it, and then like a whipped cream topping.
So that sounds really good.
It's so good because you've got like the sweetness of the Jell-O, you have the saltiness of the pretzels and the crust.
Yes.
And you see sweet salty is so good.
I do love the sweet salty combo.
Yeah. So then we have Sebastian giving her dad a bottle of scotch, which he probably just took it from his parents' supply. So
yeah, that was a little weird, but I did like how Sebastian and her dad bonded over being Patriots fans.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, and he says nobody should be alone at Thanksgiving. So, which I think is true.
It's like, yeah, Carrie's dad's maybe now realizing that Sebastian is a kid who was taken advantage of by his teacher.
Right. Yeah.
He was nothing but good to Carrie. I mean, except when he was a little bit of a jerk, but a normal teenage boy jerk. He never did anything totally out of bounds.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if it's this episode or next episode where he says that I can forgive her for making a mistake. And I'm like, really? She was the adult in the situation. So,
yeah.
But yeah. We also find out that Maggie, her family doesn't have money for her to go to college. So that's a problem. And they just say, well, it doesn't matter because you're just going to get married anyway. Oh boy. I mean, even if your goal is to get married, we called it, this was probably not nice, but we would call it an MRS degree. Like
yeah. When I was in grad school, my boyfriend that I dated in grad school, and when I moved to New York, the first thing he said when he met me, he like shook my hand. He's like, "Oh, are you here to get your MRS degree?" Now he was being like ironic.
Yeah.
So like I do want to have a disclaimer that he's actually like a very like feminist guy and he's great. But that's the first time I heard that term.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you need to have marketable skills. Like whether you actually go to college or not is not, I don't think that necessary. these days, but you need to have marketable skills that you can, like, these days, I would say, like, learn how to use some of these big programs that people and keep up to date on stuff like that. So know how to use Adobe and Excel and Google and things like that, so that you can market yourself, that you're up to date on the latest technology. That's what I would advise if somebody was asking for my opinion. I don't think you
For
even
sure.
necessarily need to have a degree per se, but you have marketable skills.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I loved it. I give this one a 9.
Yeah, I agree. It was a really strong one. Okay, then we have Caught. This is episode 7, Caught. And it is Carrie invites George to the school dance, but he misconstrues her intentions. Donna catches Maggie cheating on Walt and uses the info to blackmail her. So overall, what do you think of this episode?
I thought this was a great episode, but lots of parts about it made me angry because I'm like, oh, I don't like when people are mean. And then I do some things to say about George's character that not only did I not like some of his actions, but I actually don't feel like they went with his character. And we can dive into it more. But I mean, I love a school dance episode. These are like 2 in a row, like a holiday episode, a school dance, like Mouse is up to all her antics with like trying to be a perfectionist. I thought it was a really fun episode that I really enjoyed.
And for some reason, I thought that her dad was a shrink. Why?
Yeah.
And I guess he's a lawyer. They were
Oh.
saying in here
Oh.
that he's got cases and stuff. Like, I was confused about that. And and that's why he gets her this internship with this other law firm. So I'm confused about the folder of info, because that seemed like, why was he representing Sebastian? What did I was confused about that.
Wait, you're right. You're right, Rachel, because Sebastian would in no way be in trouble for what happened.
Yeah. So I don't understand. Yeah. Why he was involved at all with Sebastian. So that was confusing. Also, we do find out that Larissa does think that she's a grown woman. She doesn't realize that she's a teen. She says, she even says that. She says, why you're a grown woman. So she doesn't know. So that makes me a little bit kinder to her in what she's done.
Yeah.
But still, she's still not my favorite character.
For sure. But at least it's like, okay, reassuring.
Yeah. And she gets the interview spread on her purse, and she even gets to write the byline about it being a Pollock painted purse, I guess. Yeah. And so you can see the beginnings of Carrie Bradshaw going on. And she doesn't want to tell her dad because he got her the internship. But I feel like, would he really care that much? Like, what's the difference between interning in a magazine versus interning at a law place?
Yeah, like I know he sort of sets her up for being like, oh, this is going to be really tricky and you better do a good job because it's hard to get your school to do it. But I think if he really saw like, hey, this is an amazing magazine and it's in what you want to do, and that, like, she doesn't really need to hide this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, but she feels like she does. We also have Maggie bringing peach schnapps to the dance. And I know this is like a cliche in high school movies and high school things, that you you booze up the punch, but I feel like, does that really happen? And would you be able to put like a whole bottle? That seems like a lot.
I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, because it's one thing I didn't drink in high school, but I had a lot of friends who did. And it's one thing to yourself willingly consume that, even if you're underage, like that's still a choice.
Yeah.
But to sort of essentially poison other people,
yeah,
not really okay.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I just feel like somebody would see you put a whole bottle.
Yeah.
Plus,
And
it
also
would
people
taste
it.
weird. People would be like, what is wrong? Like, because
Yeah.
if you're not expecting, I mean, I'm never drinking alcohol, but like, I think it has a pretty like strong taste, right?
I mean, I don't drink anymore, but I find that like I can taste even the littlest bit, but I'm very sensitive to it. But I do think in a punch, if you put a whole bottle in, someone's going to be like, and even if they're into it, they're going to know.
Yeah,
They're going to be like,
right.
this tastes different.
Right. Yeah. But Walt has chicken pox, poor Walt. And so Maggie's on her own. And and Simon, he's there at the dance, and he says, it's always more fun when you're with me, isn't it? So he's getting a little creepy here. But she is attracted to Simon. She just obviously feels conflicted because of Walt and everything. And she finally, at the end, she tells Carrie about Simon, and so she says, you got to tell him, you got to tell Walt, you can't. I don't know. It's like, I feel like, do teenagers really have like this much drama? Like, it's one thing to have like little relationships, and I think they do, but like cheating and this stuff, it's like a
So
soap
much.
opera.
So, I mean, I didn't, but
I certainly didn't, or know anybody. The closest that I had in my peer group was my best friend. She had a very serious boyfriend, and they actually ended up getting married, still married to this day. So it all worked out. That's like the most serious relationship of
yes.
They ended up having a baby when she was a freshman in college, I believe. And he was a year younger, so he was still in high school. And then they got married, I think, then the next year. And yeah, they're still together.
All worked out.
Yeah, it worked out great. So
yeah,
that was the most exciting relationship of anybody I knew.
I did know, I wasn't close with any of them, but I did know a few girls in my high school who did, I don't want to say date our teachers, because they were taken advantage of by our teachers. So we did have that in my school, which was weird. Difficult to think about it now. As an adult, like I remember as a kid being like, oh, and it was just like drama. But now I look back and I'm like, that is tragic and so upsetting and so infuriating.
Yeah. Well, and there may have been drama that I was just naive to, because I was pretty naive, pretty sheltered as a teen and child. I did know of one case where, and I've talked about this before, that there was one teacher who married a former student, but it was after she was like older. But it was still like a big age. It was still a little weird, but yeah, that is the only thing like that I was aware of. But there was probably drama that I didn't know about. And there was one girl who got pregnant in high school, and she named her baby Nature Rain, which was like, that's a new one. I never heard of that one before.
I love it. Very centered with.
Yeah. Yes. So then we also have, they get the tickets in the mail for the Nutcracker. That had been a thing that Dorrit and the mom did, and they just had probably like annual season tickets kind of a thing. So they came in the mail. And so the dad decides to go to the Nutcracker with Dorrit. He takes that time off of this big case that he's doing and everything. And yeah, I think that especially if you lost your mother, like doing those kinds of things would be really important. And she's pretty tough on her dad because he gets sleepy, and because ballet's a little boring. I mean, it's incredible what they do, but I would probably be with the dad. I mean, I've been to the Nutcracker before, and sometimes I get a little sleepy.
Especially because, like he said, he was staying up late to work on cases because he wanted to be able to take off to be with her.
Yeah.
And I love, because I know that you hate, and I agree with this when it's just like the sullen teen, but I love
Yeah.
that we're going to see depth to Dorrit of, you know, she was so close to her mom and she had never spent one-on-one time with her dad. So she's lost her person.
Yeah. Yeah. And George tells her in the previous episode that you have a shtick. Dorrit, you have a shtick. And I'm like, yeah, she absolutely does. He's
Yeah,
right.
that was a fun scene.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
But yeah, I mean, and my dad would absolutely be falling asleep going to the network. My dad is actually kind of a Renaissance man. He loves theater and he loves opera and he loves classical music but then he also loves going dirt bike riding and being outside and skiing and things like that. But he does have a bad habit of falling asleep. And I sometimes struggle with that, even going to, if I've had a long day and I'm going to a screening, sometimes I'll fight it. I'll be fighting it. I'm like,
It's warm and it's comfy. And
yes.
dark.
And it's especially at the ballet where there's no like plot, it's just kind of watching the dancing, which is beautiful. But yeah, I can feel for the dad here. I really can.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah. But I kind of liked the fact that they ended on this cute note between Dorrit and the dad. They make up and then you also have let's see, you also have Mouse and Seth, and they have been getting her distracted from her schoolwork, so she got a B+. And I was always somebody that, like, I would have been, it depends on the subject, but for the most part, I would have probably been pretty happy with B+.
B+ sounds great.
Yeah. But she's upset, and so she asks for extra credit. She's doing it at the dance. She tries to put it underneath the teacher's door. Then they're trying to get into the class, and so then the teachers and the janitors find them, stop them, and so she decides that she is going to that Seth is just too much of a distraction. She wants to get into Harvard, and so they break up, which kind of made me a little bit sad.
It made me a little bit sad too, and there were a couple things in this episode to me that didn't feel very realistic to the characters, and this was one of them.
Yeah.
I think that it would have been a conversation like, hey, we can only see each other twice a month, or we can't talk every night before bed, or whatever they were doing. But like, really?
I agree. And I don't think that if her SAT scores were high enough, then they're not going to care if she has a couple of B's. You can still get into Harvard.
She's not going to have a B even in that class. She had 1 B+ on an assignment, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think that, it did seem like, okay, they must have a reason they needed to write this character off rather than like a
I bet you're right. Yeah.
So then we have George. Like, he was actually really charming for a lot of this episode, I thought, between him and Carrie, and I loved her dress
She's so
for the
cute.
dance. It was really good. And then he starts to make the move on Carrie, and she says she doesn't want to, she's not ready. And then he says virginity isn't something you get, or she says virginity isn't something you get out of the way with so you can start having fun. And no, wait, George says virginity is something you get out of the way with so you can start having fun. And then he keeps going, he keeps trying, and then Carrie breaks up with him. And then she's talking to Maggie, and she says, doesn't it make a difference to lose your virginity to someone you really love, like you did with Walt? So I don't know. It was a little bit of a bummer way for George to kind of end, because he was a fun character up until then.
Rachel, I just don't think that this is realistic with George. And
Yeah.
here's why. I'm not saying a lot of times, I'm not saying that I thought he was a perfect character or anything, but I think that this is a young man that we've seen really great behavior from, and he's in therapy. So like he has a pretty high EQ. Now, I think even if he were going to manipulate her to go further than she wanted, he would have done it in a way that was like more savvy and not as overt. And I'm not saying that's better, because that's more insidious, and like maybe she would have gone through with it. But this flipping a switch to me just didn't feel very accurate for this character.
Yeah.
It felt like he was literally a different person. And I'm not saying that can happen with people sometimes, but something about this just didn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I agree. But Sebastian sees her kissing George, and so he's getting jealous, and then that makes Donna upset, and she sees Maggie and Simon, and so then Donna blackmails Maggie and says that she'll tell everybody about Simon, and so by the end, Maggie tells. She breaks it up with Simon, and then she tells Carrie. She starts to tell people so that you can't blackmail her. But yeah, I mean, all of that was like fine, I guess. I don't know. So much drama again for high school.
Yes, and I will say that what I really do like is that I'm glad this didn't turn into like a whole thing with Maggie trying to do something weird with Carrie and and like going along with the blackmail. Like, I'm glad they just kind of nipped that in the bud.
Yeah. And so Carrie has the job opportunity to work at Interview, and she says at the end, this is my life, and I wasn't going to have any regrets. And she gets the job interview, and she gets the job at Interview.
She looks amazing walking in.
Yeah, it was a fun way to end the episode. And again, I just feel like her dad's not going to care.
I hope
you
not.
Just say like, this is what happened. I met somebody in the city. I made this connection, and now I have this other job opportunity.
Yeah.
I would think at least my dad would be impressed. You'd be like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also the thing, like you and I are both in jobs that aren't the family business. And I think that Carrie's dad does in a way, it's like, oh, it'd be great if you were a lawyer too. So I think he has that in his head.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that was, I guess, a little bit similar to this was when I was in 8th grade, a bunch of my friends all got job at the local movie theater. And I wanted to, so I was only 14. So it would have only been a few hours a week, but I had my heart set on it, of getting this job at the movie theater. And the thing is that you had to be willing to work Thanksgiving in order to get this particular job. And my mom and dad had this plan to go up to New York to visit my aunt and uncle and cousins. And they were like, no, of course they were. What are they going to say? We're like, we're going to change the whole family's plan so you can get this like mediocre part-time job at 14 that we're going to have to drive you to, and all this stuff. But I was so mad at my parents about that. I was so grumpy the entire trip. I was just like, so I do remember that. They ruined it all. But that's the only thing I can relate to. with my poor wanting to work at the movie theater self.
Like,
Yeah.
well, you made up for it because now you review
Yeah.
movies for a living.
It's true. I really did. But yeah, I would give this one I thought all the stuff with the dance was all a lot of fun. I mean, until the very, very end, I guess. But for the most part, I thought that was all fun. So I would give this one an 8, I think.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Well, let us know if you've seen these 2 episodes, what you think. I did see that you can watch them, I guess, on the CW, their app or whatever. This show's on there. So if people want to watch, they can stream it there for free, I think. I think there's ads for free with ads. So check that out. And we have I'll put a playlist with all of our Sex and the City content on there. So take a look at that. And Jax, where can people find you?
At Jacqueline C Tweets on Twitter and Jacqueline Collier on Instagram.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And we also have our City Girls Pod on Twitter. So check that out. And we would really appreciate it. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We appreciate that. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group and merch store. So take a look at that. And thanks, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.